Hey everyone, welcome to Litvak Leadership Live. It's a lunch and learn this Friday. We're here at our new time. Before we bring on Evan Tzivanakis, I know how to say his name, I want to ask you a question. Have you liked and followed Litvak Leadership on the social media listed below? If not, what are you waiting for? We are launching here as a lunch and learn every single Friday to talk to you about things that will improve your life, improve your management, improve the success that you're looking for. What we're going to talk about today is why thoughtful consideration of feedback is important, because when you receive feedback, you do not always like it. So without any further ado, I want to bring out my guest and friend, Evan Tzivanakis, Executive Coach Asia. Hey, Evan, how are you?
I love your countdown groovy song.
It gives people time to log in, and it gets me
Yeah,
in the mood.
and I like your new branding, the colors. It looks very fresh. It looks very energetic. But I'm very good. Thank you very much. And how are you?
I am doing well. Evan was supposed to be on multiple times. He's been on a couple times already, and then I was going to have him on, and then I had heart surgery. So, but we're not talking about heart surgery today. We are talking about feedback. So, hey, join the conversation as Evan and I launch, post a comment. And if you want to reach out to Evan to talk to him about his services, there's his email address, Evan at executivecoachasia.com. Evan is a worldwide expert on coaching and management. We've got local folks jumping in, pizzeria owners, Kevin Mayberry. So, Evan, let's just jump right into it. Feedback is difficult, and at least for me, it has been at various times because you hear things you don't like. Why do you think feedback is important?
Why do I think feedback is important? Because it's an opportunity for the receiver, if he or she has the right mindset, to develop himself or herself and
Mm-hmm.
enhance his or her performance. But
Yeah.
a few people take feedback well, right? What do you think? Um, you know, it's like, because when you're giving someone feedback, what are you kind of telling him? You're telling him like, you're not doing something right or you're doing something wrong. So the shield,
Yeah.
the door comes down. Like, what do? We become defensive if we are on
So,
the receive. Yeah.
well, and feedback, I think, is all about personal changes. And, when you get feedback, it is generally not, hey, you're doing a great job. Okay. It is more about constructive criticism, or what a former colleague of mine used to call courageous conversations. When you're on the receiving end of feedback and someone tells you something you don't like, how do you think is the best way for someone to handle it? And I'm front loading you because all feedback should be given thoughtful consideration. But how do you give thoughtful consideration to something that you don't like?
Most of us, I would say that getting feedback is great. When somebody comes to you at work and say, or in a personal relationship, I want to give you some feedback. What do we say? Oh, yes, please. So most of us would say that getting feedback is great. But Sean, let's face it, there are times when we find it difficult not to get defensive,
Oh, yeah.
right? When we are on the receiving end of feedback. Therefore, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, I would say that it's very useful to train yourself on receiving feedback, because if you can handle that feedback well, this will encourage others to give you, guess what, more feedback. And the positive side is that this gives you an opportunity to develop yourself and enhance your performance. But you need to listen well. You need not to take it personal. You need not to be defensive. And I think it is also important to kind of remember that you don't have to action every piece of feedback you get.
You don't. Okay, so I want to come back to that, but I want to answer Bruce's question. We're gonna talk about the action on the feedback. Is critical feedback ever better than constructive feedback?
I don't have an answer this or that, but it depends. My answer is it depends on the person who is giving the feedback and on two
Right.
factors.
Okay.
The language used and the lack of evidence in the feedback.
Language used and lack of evidence.
Yes, not enough evidence to support your feedback, especially when it comes to work relationships.
Sure.
Because obviously, I want to give you feedback. You didn't wash the dishes. I have enough feedback. I can take a picture of you if you're talking in a family relationship. But how do you give good feedback as a manager? You need evidence to support what you're saying. And sometimes I see managers, they want to push somebody to do more sales, for example, and they're using the let me give you a feedback moment as an opportunity to push them. And that feedback doesn't actually becomes a feedback. It's an opportunity to push them to increase sales or to do more work.
So it's a self-serving agenda as opposed to feedback. It's a self-serving agenda from the person giving the feedback as opposed to an opportunity for the person receiving the feedback to grow. Is that what you're saying occurs at times?
Yes, you say it right. And I think the magic word, this is what I'm saying, yes, but I think the magic word that makes feedback easier and creates kind of the best setting, especially for giving difficult feedback, that word is rapport, relationship.
Okay.
And if you could allow me to explain, in my opinion,
Please.
I do believe that if you have good rapport with the person you need to give feedback to, this makes the whole process much less painful.
So I got to ask you about that, though, because I have been challenged in leadership roles that I have had in my career. The difference between building rapport and personal relationships. Where is that line? Because if you get too interpersonal with someone, rapport too far is too interpersonal. And then when you give them feedback, they think you are betraying them as a friend, right?
This is a leadership characteristic, what I'm about to explain, which good leaders have.
Okay.
A good leader knows how to balance three things. Are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm ready.
A good leader, look, I've been an employee. I became a manager, a director. I run companies, and now I am also coaching and training managers. And I've seen it all over again. And here I talk from experience, both from a manager perspective, from a trainer, from a coach perspective, and from a managerial perspective, my own, because I've made tons of mistakes. So I came to realize that good leaders know how to balance three things: results, relationships, and their own ego.
Okay. And frankly, relationships to me is the hardest one.
Because what you said, if you're too friendly, exactly. So if I'm a manager, if I'm all about results, I will get results, but I will struggle to retain people because I will drive them crazy.
Yeah, absolutely.
On the opposite side, if I'm too relationship focused, I will make friends with all my employees. But if you're too friendly with somebody, you can't push them.
Right. Absolutely. Again, if you're too friendly, how do you have that, so again, where is the line between rapport and relationship?
The manager needs to balance that. The manager needs to know how to balance that. Like if you are going out with your staff every day and you're getting drunk and you hug them I mean, I've done it, but in the Christmas party. But if you're the kind of manager that is over friendly and you're getting drunk and haha, let's do this, let's do that, fine. But how are you going to put the manager's face tomorrow's morning meeting? And you're like, so
Absolutely.
you need to know as a manager how to balance it. Is the way you communicate, is the way you carry yourself, is the language that you use. And feedback is the language used. Like, for example, I do believe, in my opinion, that if you're delivering your feedback you should use language that suits your team members' pattern of thinking, speaking, acting, and his own style. For example, and this is where you need to know your people, by the way, because if you don't know your people, is your person you're giving feedback left brain, right brain? Does he like to read? Does he like to watch? How does he learn? What is his learning style? So, for example, somebody, let's say you have somebody who thinks in pictures, and so you kind of approach that person and you tell him something, you have seen that, every time you type something is full of spelling mistakes. So
Right.
I would like you to go to your text and look through your text more closely, view the layout and spelling mistakes, and please next time show more attention to detail. So if that person thinks in pictures, he will process it in his brain and he will
Right.
go back and he will see it, because that's how they like to think. That's how they operate.
So going back to your comment about is all feedback actionable, what did you mean by that?
What do you mean actionable?
Well, you said, should we take, the question is, should all feedback have a resulting action? Or something to that effect, you said. Meaning, if you're giving me feedback, do I necessarily need to act on it? And I think you were going to go off into a sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Look, I think a feedback should be specific. And if you're talking for proper feedback, there should be an action in results, in behavior. It could be in behavior. It could be you're giving feedback to somebody about their timekeeping.
Okay.
So it depends on the kind of feedback. Now, listen, and this is what I'm talking about, proper feedback. I'm not talking about evaluating performance. I'm not talking about pushing people to do more. I'm talking about proper feedback. And the question I would like to answer with a question. For example, okay, you want to give feedback to somebody. So, in my opinion, before giving feedback to anyone, please write down answers to the following these questions, and I believe are important questions. What happened that confirms this behavior or these results, whatever? What happened that confirms that something needs to change?
Okay.
Are you with me, right? Why?
I'm with you.
What happened? But you need to be specific. Not because specific is not because it's my 3-month evaluation and I need to do it. No, that's not specific. So what happened that confirms something needs to improve? So what do you see? In other words, what do you hear in the other person's behavior, for example, or results that tell you as a manager something isn't good enough? For example, do you see this person arriving late for work every morning? And do you hear, hear the same excuses about traffic, but everybody else that lives in the same city are on time? Then that's an evidence. That's a good reason to give feedback.
Absolutely. So,
and the second question.
Okay, yes. The second question.
Yes. So that's number one. So please be specific. Have sales dropped by X% over the last 2 months that you need to give feedback. That's another good reason to give feedback. So please be specific. And then now we go to after changes are made, how can you evaluate that these changes are effective and the situation now is according to your standards. So what is the measure? How are you going to measure improvement?
Well, that should be decided before the feedback is even given.
In theory, yes, but you'll be surprised. A lot
Theory,
of time
yes.
it's not happening.
Well, and that's why, you know, feedback as a whole, I mean, people will give feedback, but they'll say, you just need to boom, boom, boom. And they say, tell me how you need me to help you do that. And it's my perspective that if you're going to give someone feedback that they need to improve in A, B, and C, as the person giving feedback, it is important that you suggest to them, go do this, go do this, go do this, and then say, what else do you think you should do? Even if those three things are not necessarily 100% going to work, they will at least start the conversation as to what needs to occur. What do you think?
Because sometimes the problem with feedback is that some people, they ask, the questions are very vague. Like, let me give you an example. You provide excellent service. What kind of service you're going to give feedback, let's say, to your customer service employee? You provide great service, or you don't provide good service enough. What kind of service? What does the person do? So you need specificity. So you need to give proper, for example, you shall, the expectation is that you shall respond to customer emails within 24 hours and provide complete answers to the questions. So now I know if I receive an email,
right?
Okay, I'm not doing good customer support. For what? Like, you need to be specific. Like, I know now I receive an email, I need to reply to that email within 24 hours.
Right.
It means it's 5 o'clock now. I've just received an email. I'm going to go home. So I decide I either reply now or I reply tomorrow before 6 p.m., for example. So
right, you have to give people parameters.
Parameters, and you need to be very specific. Yes.
So as someone receiving, so we've talked a lot about giving feedback.
Yes.
What about receiving feedback? Because I had someone that I worked with years ago that when he would bring information or he would receive information, his whole phrase was, it's not good news, it's not bad news, it's just news. And I've taken that and I look at feedback in the same way, that whether it's positive, negative, or indifferent, all feedback is a gift because it gives you the opportunity to think, to adjust, and to improve.
Receiving feedback is not easy, especially if it's negative feedback, right?
Right. Oh, negative feedback's the worst.
Because you're telling somebody you're not good enough in a relationship, at work. When the managers tell you, we need to have a talk. Ta-da!
It's never a good sentence.
Like, or when your employee is telling you, like, can I have a word? I'm like, yeah, just take your jacket. You want to resign, just take your jacket and go. You know what is coming, right? So
you know what's coming.
Yes. So, and that comes with experience, I suppose. But in my opinion, if you are receiving feedback, don't become defensive immediately and don't jump into conclusions. So, what we could do when we are in the receiving end is to ask questions to make sure we have enough information about any negative feedback that we are receiving. For example, can you provide more examples or information about what you're telling me? Like, you are telling me to improve my customer service. So what do you expect me to do?
Yeah. Oh, and so what you're almost talking about is a performance improvement plan. So at some point, feedback becomes a performance improvement plan.
Yes, exactly. And kind of qualify. It's like when you are in sales, you kind of qualify the client, you're trying to be really specific. So, so if you then you ask those questions, can you please tell me more? Can you please tell me more? Can you please give me an example? And the person that actually, if they know how to give proper feedback, they will have all these examples ready. That's why I said before, make sure you have enough evidence and make sure you have all the data and information to say, yes, I can see this report. I printed out the email communication you had with the client, and I can see that blah, 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 blah. This is what you need to do. This is what you need to do. This is what you need to do. So don't worry, we're going to provide you training. And then what you can do, if you are a manager, you get that feedback then. What is telling you, okay, I need to create now a training plan, which we're going to a different subject. Because
Right.
you could actually create good training plans to train your employees according to the data that you get and the feedback that you give them and what they say about the feedback.
So do you look at feedback? I mean, it's easy for the person giving feedback to say that it's not punishment, that what they're wanting to do is to help the person they're giving it to. But too often when feedback is the person receiving it sees it as punishment or sees it as, hyper correction. What suggestions do you have for individuals giving feedback to be able to balance giving feedback, and I'm just going to say with a soft touch, but has hooks in it to make an impression?
Yeah, first of all, is the rapport. Like, the rapport. If you have good rapport with the other person, that will help. Now, I think number one is, the suggestion when you give feedback is to make sure that you have enough evidence to support what you are saying.
Right.
So, have concrete examples, whatever your situation in your department you're in. Let's say, for example, if you want to provide, feedback about a customer support agent and they are a live chat agent, print out the live chat discussions and see, this is what the client said, this is what you said. And then actually you can turn that feedback into a coaching session.
Oh, yeah.
Because you can ask, now that you know the mistake, what do you think you should done? That's again a different topic. So to answer your question, have enough evidence to support your feedback. Another one is, because once you start giving feedback, what will the other person tell you? But George was on a lunch break, toilet break, and I was taking 20 chats at the time. So expect to hear that excuses. And sometimes they could be genuine excuses. The other thing that you could do is, please, I think is number one, focus on the behavior, focus on what you want to improve, not on the personality of the person. And tell the person, I'm giving you feedback not as, Sean, I have nothing personal against you. I'm just giving you feedback based on data and based on your work, the quality of your work. So do not take it personal. It could be anybody. It's nothing against Sean, nothing against human to human. It's just professional feedback I give you. So separate the person from the issue, from the behavior that you want to see changed. And in some cultures, expect people to take feedback very personal. Like, I have clients in Asia, I live in Asia, and I live in Europe as well. And I can see how people sometimes in Asia, they tend to get really emotional when you're giving them feedback. Yes. They take it personal.
Because it's like a slam on their family, or?
No, because if you work with them and, they see work like their family sometimes, it's like, and they will do extra efforts for you. So you need to make sure that you keep the emotions out of it by just preempting the situation. Another one is explain that feedback is for their own benefit and for your own benefit and for the company benefit. It's not here to judge you. It's here to improve you.
So there is a phenomena out there that I've been seeing posting on social media called quiet quitting.
Yes.
Okay. Where people come in at the start of work, they do their job description, nothing more, nothing less, and they expect to leave at a specific time, specific start, nothing more, nothing less, specific leave. Yet we have been in a culture for years and years of promoting go-getters, promoting people who take on more responsibility. And there seems to be a shift of people that I'm just going to call workers for lack of a better term, where people in their jobs want to do exactly what they're hired for and are not necessarily looking for promotion. How do you give those people feedback when they may be living up to exactly what you want them to do, but they're not doing anything more, and therefore they're not meeting the overall needs of the organization?
Yeah, well, if you're looking at I suppose at the strategic level,
right?
It's about the company culture, how engaged they feel, how productive they are. Do you know what is their why? Why are they working with you? So you could have engaged people but not productive, and you could have productive people but not engaged.
Okay, I could see that. Absolutely.
Like, I'm engaged. I'm engaged. I love the company, but I'm not productive because I need training. And on the opposite, I'm productive because I know I have 10 years experience in that specific craft that I'm doing, but I'm not engaged because I'm not really motivated by company, but I can do the job really well. I'm productive, but I'm not really engaged. So what kind of person are you dealing with? So sometimes feedback is all that is needed, but I think there are 4 or 5 occasions where you might need to give feedback. For example, maybe you have a team member that doesn't really understand what they are aiming at or what exactly needs to change. You'll be surprised. Some people think they are doing a good job, but they are not. So you might have these people, like, maybe they don't know what they are aiming for, or maybe they don't know what are your standards. Maybe they are new. Maybe you didn't clarify from the beginning. Maybe you didn't train and then follow up. Because if you don't follow up with training has no meaning most of the time. Maybe another occasion, it could be that they lack self-awareness and they don't see themselves clearly enough to improve their performance. Another occasion could be maybe they are too self-critical, or maybe they are focused really narrow on one interpretation or perspective. Maybe they are not learning from the experience. Maybe they're not even motivated to change. Maybe they just want to stick in the way that we always done it.
Right.
This is where you need to know your people, maybe run different assessments to understand where they stand. Right?
So final question, when you're giving feedback, the oldest advice in the book that I've heard, because I just remember it from years and years ago, is the cookie theory of giving feedback. Say something positive, give the critical feedback, say something positive. So the meat of what you really want to say is in between two different,
the sandwich.
Oreo cookie, it's bookend. Do you think that is effective, or what is a better way to provide feedback to people?
Please repeat, because I froze a little bit. Can you please repeat the question?
Do you believe it's effective to go positive, crucial, positive, or is there a better way to provide feedback to people?
Yeah, I used to, when I was a manager in the UK for around 7 years, this is how I got trained to give feedback. Give, take, give, plus, minus, plus. We call it like a sandwich feedback.
Well, that's the same thing I just said, plus, minus,
it's the
plus.
same thing.
Same thing.
You look, it depends. It depends on situations. Yes, because obviously you want to leave somebody on a positive.
Right.
But you need to make sure that when you are giving that feedback is, first of all, you offer feedback on observed behavior, not on perceived attitude.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
That does make sense. You give feedback on behavior, not perceived attitude.
Yes. Another way is to offer a description of what you saw and how you felt rather than a judgment.
Okay. Descriptions, not judgments.
For example, when you started to shout at the customer over the phone, I felt anxious rather than it was a bad idea to raise your voice.
I hear you. No, that makes great sense.
So it's all about how you play. So I think we should do another talk. So it all boils down to communication, I would say, right?
Right.
And the way you strategically choose your words. Another way is to obviously to focus on behavior which can be changed, which can be improved. And I'm not talking about change people. You cannot change people. I think you know it. I know it doesn't matter.
Right.
Your kids, your wife, your employees, your partners, your health. You cannot change anybody. All you can do is influence. So focus on behavior that can be improved. You know, I don't think it's very, in my opinion, I don't think it is very helpful to tell somebody that a nervous twitch is a distraction. For example, you know, a persistent drumming on the table or tapping of the foot, however, can be eliminated and so could be commented on. Okay?
Yeah.
Another way, you know, as you said, the feedback plus minus plus, I think is a good idea to ask questions rather than make statements.
Yes, absolutely.
Because I do believe, you know, that approach allows individuals, allows the other person the responsibility of reaching their own conclusions and forces them to think about the issue.
I hear
you. How else could you have reacted when the client started to get aggressive on the phone?
And then it turns into a coaching session where you're helping people as opposed to telling them, hey, stop that.
Unless it's the fifth time they are doing it, you know.
Well, yeah. That's awesome.
Obviously. Yes.
Well, Evan, you have brought a tremendous amount of information that I encourage everyone, go through this video, find the snippets you like, and make sure if you're looking for executive coaching, that you reach out to Evan. He's in a different time zone, so the two of you will have to figure it out for all my US.
I am in my parents' house. You see the traditional background setting.
Absolutely. There is a time difference of 7 hours between Evan and I right now. But Evan, I truly appreciate you being here on this Lunch and Learn for Litvak Leadership Live. It's always a pleasure to see you, my friend.
The pleasure was mine. It's good to see you again. And again, thank you for inviting me.
You bet. Everyone else, have a great day. And we'll be back next week with another guest at lunchtime on Friday.